our viewers. Hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha. You're watching Perspective. In a bid to make the online world and e-commerce more authentic and less misleading for users, the Union government has unveiled a framework of standards to curb fake online reviews and unverified ratings. Formulated by the Bureau of Indian Standards, it will be applicable to any organization which publishes consumer reviews online and will cover both solicited and unsolicited kinds of reviews. Now, according to Consumer Affairs Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh, India probably is the first country in the world to formulate a standard for online reviews. It was necessitated because of the vital role online reviews play in making purchase decisions on e-commerce platforms and also increasing incidents of consumers being misled into buying online products and services. The BIS standards will be effective starting 25th of November. Initially, they'll be voluntary, but the government will consider making them mandatory in case the menace of fake reviews continues on the online platforms, as per the Consumer Affairs Secretary. So how effective will the new standards be in curbing fake online reviews? Will they bring in more transparency and promote information accuracy? We'll try and discuss these aspects and related aspects as well on the menace of fake reviews in this edition of Perspective. Joining me are three distinguished panelists, so let me begin by introducing them to you. Pleased to welcome Ms. Pushpa Girimaji, she's Senior Consumer Advocate, Mr. Ashim Sanyal, CEO, Consumer Voice, and Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, Chairman, Industry Affairs Committee, PhD, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program. Ms. Girimaji, allow me to begin the program today with you. Your response to the move on the guidelines, the framework that's been announced to curb online fake reviews. Do you think that it is going to, protect consumer interest at the same time, enhance information accuracy?
Well, this is a beginning. One must remember that online review is a very powerful tool in the hands of consumers. In fact, it's far more powerful than advertisements because at least in an advertisement, consumers know that it is, issued by the manufacturer or the service provider and basically extolling the virtues of the product or a service, and it's very positive. Whereas a online review written by a consumer who has bought a product or a service and writing a fair account of what she or he thinks is really something that is going to empower consumers, help consumers make an informed choice. So it's absolutely important that these remain ethical and there is certain integrity and sincerity in these reviews. Now the thing is, unfortunately, what's happened is in recent years, because of the importance of such reviews, many manufacturer service providers are paying people. In fact, employees are being asked to write reviews. People who are being paid, in fact, there are unemployed youth who say that this is their regular job. They write for a price, these reviews. And then there are also offers of gifts and, other things, freebies to consumers themselves to write a review. And obviously, when they are told that they will get a very good price, then they will write a positive review. So there are so many unethical practices. In fact, I must mention that in the European Commission, they surveyed 23 major websites across Europe and found that about 55% of their websites violating the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive of the EU, which requires truthful information to help consumers make an informed choice. So in order to stop these kind of, fake reviews and protect consumer interest, this was absolutely necessary. And so I really welcome this move. And of course, it is voluntary today, and one hopes that, the online platforms will comply with it. If they don't do it, then obviously the government has to make it mandatory and enforce it. That's most important, and enforce a reality, and consumers can make an informed choice on the basis of these reviews.
Certainly, and going forward, going ahead, how will it be assessed is a question that needs to be discussed as well. And I'll come back to you in just a bit. Let me go across to Mr. Sanyal for his perspective. Mr. Sanyal, Ms. Girimaji said it's a well online today, rely on these reviews, which are paid, as she pointed out, and some of them are, largely fake as well. The question here is, how do the companies actually look at this aspect? India perhaps is the first country, as the Consumer Affairs Secretary said, framework in place which is going to curb the menace of online fake reviews.
I think a very a vital step has been taken by Department of Consumer Affairs in terms of curbing the fake reviews and ratings. I think that this has become a menace for consumers because online business, both platforms were providing you online services as well as e-commerce platform. Basically, are chosen products are chosen on the basis of reviews, and these reviews are unfortunately paid reviews or fake reviews created. Now, this puts consumers in a dilemma while because of simple reason that international studies have proven that a consumer buys a product within 6 to 8 seconds viewing, and online viewing is even more going to be even more sharper. So, the area of concern that is being addressed by Consumer Affairs Ministry is a very important area where the consumer gets the right choice to buy based on not fake on the particular platform and have shown satisfaction over it. Very obviously, it's going to be positive and negative. And unlike most of the other important that the e-commerce platform, the online platforms address this particular issue, they have all stated openly and many times that they are doing the so-called vigilance on their sites. But very obviously, many of these, which means basically the companies themselves are promoting it, obviously for vested interest
Right.
of selling more. Now, if you are to curb this particular thing, it has been proved that you can't really depend on companies to curb it. I mean, it is impossible job for them because they're not going to deploy more. That they also promote certain product ranges, so therefore they would be reluctant to do so. Having said that, a fair review on the actually make a fair choice, and if that is proven true by standards, as basically is being brought out by BIS, taking out an advisory may be an easy job, but maintaining a mechanism, a back-end structure to monitor it is also a very crucial aspect. Now, it's going to be a kind of I would say, obligation on the behalf of the company's executives to ensure that the fake reviews are not part. If found guilty, they have to be punished. And obviously, deterrence works better than anything else in a country like India or any developing country for that matter. And deterrence should be punitive enough so that they don't indulge in it.
You're
Now,
right. And with several other issues as well, Mr. Agarwal, we've seen we frame rules, we frame guidelines. It's difficult to implement them, make them effective because of the global, aspect involved in the business and the companies associated with it. So there are rules which are not binding. So for this also, this set of guidelines, it's voluntary in nature. Number one, the difficulty that we will face, that the government will face in assessing whether they are being complied with or not. And secondly, whether, if it had to be voluntary in nature, why were the companies reluctant in doing so? It is bringing them profits, the reviews on which consumers are relying heavily. So can we expect some kind of proactive, voluntary step from these companies involved?
Sure, I totally agree. Actually, what happens is that for the government to individually check every seller, because on platforms there could be millions and millions of sellers. So therefore, it is very important that the platforms are the people who actually ensure that they keep on sampling their vendors and checking for the fake reviews. And any vendor who is found to give a fake review should be banned. Not only that vendor should be banned, they should have a system in place that that vendor does not restart selling by somebody else's name. So that is something which is quite important, because even in India, we believe that by 2030, we'll be having a $40 billion of sales through the e-commerce platforms, and $1 trillion of sales happens worldwide, probably more, on the e-commerce website today. As we all know, almost everybody, even I, see the reviews before we buy anything. And more often than not, it seems that people are either incentivized or paid to give false reviews, and this is putting in a very bad name. Probably it is in the interest of the industry itself, the suppliers, the manufacturers, and our members, that we are able to ensure that correct reviews goes. Even if it is a negative review, it really does not matter, because we will always have a chance to reply on that. So if I get a negative review, I will answer that no, the customer expectation was wrong, the product is as per our offer, and so is the case, and we will be able to justify. In fact, people will be more happier reading a negative review and the answer, and they would be quite sure that the product is good by looking at other reviews. So what we understand is that the industry today is fully supportive. So once the industry is supportive, this action of the government to bring it probably currently on an advisory note, but in future with the punitive and charges on the suppliers. So we believe that this is the way forward. There's nothing else which can be done.
Before I
the
proceed,
industry is going to support it.
Before I proceed to the second round of question, Mr. Agarwal, a very quick question. We were discussing how in a country like India, and Mr. Sanyal rightly said, deterrence is something which is very important. For now, it's voluntary compliance. Just in case if the government goes ahead with making it, mandatory, will there be a pushback from companies?
So there will be many companies who will, who have been giving fake reviews. They will be unhappy. They will make a hue and a cry. But let us be sure that the majority of the companies will be benefited. The consumer will be benefited. The market is going to benefit. And if the market is going to benefit, that is in interest of everybody. So the industry chambers and as individuals, we are all going to support it. There are always naysayers. We have to discount them.
Okay. Ms. Kirimaji, the fine print of these guidelines is still not available. What we know so far is that, it is going to be voluntary in nature, and companies will also have to take certain steps towards checking fake reviews, paid reviews. The question here is, if the companies are reaping profits, it's a big, industry, and if I go by the numbers, the data from last year says online reviews influenced about $3.8 trillion of global e-commerce spend. Particularly, I think after the COVID pandemic, this number has soared. So if it is reaping them profits, can we expect them to act voluntarily and, end what is bringing them profits, what is bringing them money?
As I said, this is just a first step, because I fully agree with what you said. In our country, even when we have powerful laws, you don't find complete compliance unless the government really holds us strict. Unless there is very strict enforcement, laws are not complied with. So when there is a voluntary code, I really have my doubts about how much it's going to be complied with. But as I said, this is a first step. I think this will help the industry also get used to it. And also, probably this is, one step at a time kind of a, procedure that the government is following. And in fact, if you see the BIS standards, which is an adaptation of the International Standards Organization on this issue, it calls for a review administrator. And the review administrator has to clearly ensure that, paid reviews are not published, and where they have been given, where the reviews are done on the basis of some kind of a prize or saying that you will be part of a lottery or something like that, then there should be a mark next to such reviews clearly stating that this is what it is. And, so there are lots of things. In fact, this, the standard talks about guiding principles, which include integrity, accuracy, privacy, security, transparency, which is most important, accessibility, responsiveness. And you see, the problem here is consumers are unable to make out when they see a review. Of course, when you see a critical review, then you will probably think that, well, probably this is an honest review, as against somebody who's really praising the service or product to the skies. But it is really very difficult to make out, is this somebody who's a proper consumer who's used it, or is it a paid review? So that's why transparency, and then it becomes very important, and consumers should also know when they see a review, who's the person who's written it, complete address, this, you see, there's also this issue of privacy of that person. So there has to be a balance between the two. But the thing is, it's very important that we make this beginning and get the manufacturers, online platforms to start thinking about it, start doing this. And I think it's also very important for the ministry, Consumer Affairs Ministry at this time, to start some kind of a monitoring like, the European Commission did, to see, and also they could see whether companies have, got these review administrators, appointed review administrators, and what kind of work they're doing. So in that way, they can start. But I think eventually, in order to protect consumers, this has to become mandatory. And in fact, I do feel that it has to be a much stricter law than, what the standards are saying.
Right,
of course, BIS is saying that they will also come up with a conformity assessment scheme. So that would also help. But it has to become mandatory and much more stricter, I feel.
Certainly. Compliance and assessment are going to be the backbones of these guidelines if they are to be implemented effectively. Mr. Sanyal, the fact that it's a booming industry, the question here is, and I want to take you a little back to understand, why have fake online reviews become so resilient, because of which there are steps which are needed to now, ensure that these do not mislead consumers, particularly in areas of consumer durables, in tours and travels, in restaurants and deliveries. So I think it's become our daily habit as well as consumers. We will pick up our phones, check reviews, and then obviously be influenced. So the question here is, the idea is to understand why in the first place have they become so resilient?
The question of resilience comes in basically because somebody thought out a plan, in fact, of basically selling more. And this well thought out plan brought us to this particular chapter of reviews and ratings. This obviously were introduced gradually, much way before the online platform started, and then nothing of this kind was existing. So as they grew in size, as the number of vendors increased on that platform, there was intra-company competition, there was inter-company competition. Both of them led to only one thing, that how to sell more and sustain that. One of the easiest sustainability methods is online reviews, whether fake or true. But then reviews basically are taken seriously by consumers because of simple reason that there is no comparison between two platforms, or a very easy comparison to make between two product ranges. So given that particular fact, the consumer becomes dependent on the reviews and views them as the true picture of the product or services that he or she intends to buy. Given this scenario, the complexity of the review system has actually become simplified. You can basically tell a college student to write a review for you and pay him some money. You can tell the employees to write a review, pay him some money. You can tell anybody for that matter who's even not seen the product or service or used the service to write a review for you. It's a simplistic version of a marketing tool developed well, and over a period of time, it has developed into a most powerful tool of influencer. Now, this influencer business is basically something that is going to give a tough time to a lot of companies, but I tend to agree that many of the companies will tend to follow this particular thing, because ultimately the gainer is going to be their friend, that is the consumer, the person who's buying the particular product.
Right.
Because now what is happening is, based on fake reviews, the company is again facing the wrath, and I think this is something that they have to understand. The products are coming back to them with a lot of faults being detected, service not being found satisfactory. So all this thing will stop in case the companies take it seriously and they decide upon operating on a transparent basis of reviews. And very correctly said in the BIS standards that this review basically has to be reviewed internally by the companies. You just can't let the government run this particular thing. It's impossible for them, or consumer organizations or civil society. It is the companies who are responsible for running the platform. They have to be made responsible for ensuring that the true reviews or appear and the fake reviews disappear. Now, this not being mandated will not work. Definitely not. It has to be a mandatory standard with compliance, which is again an issue for all laws, to be monitored, measured. The black sheeps have to be called out. I think there are multiple steps that the government has to take in case this has to be a success. This is a baby step forward. Yes, definitely it is, but a very important step forward because online platform dependence on reviews and ratings is, I would say, 95%, in my opinion, in fact, especially the younger generation. So if this can be cured of manipulation, then definitely there is a potential to have more consumer trust on these platforms. It's win-win situation for companies.
Absolutely. Mr. Agarwal, so it's not just revenue and authenticity, it's also the trust factor that helps the companies. So what do you think the companies should also be doing? It's everything the government can't be doing, as Mr. Sanyal rightly suggests. It's difficult for the consumers also to filter out what is a fake review and what is an authentic review. And herein comes the role of the companies, because it's a win-win situation for them as well. It's ethical, number one, and it's about long-term trust with the consumer, the ultimate friend. So what kind of steps can we expect the bigger companies now to take in order to check this problem of fake reviews?
Basically, what we believe is that first of all, the government has to take on board the platforms, because the platforms are in a better position to control the reviews from their vendors. And as far as the government is concerned, well, obviously it has to set up a body where people could complain that either the reviews which they have given have been deleted by the vendor, or they understand that what they had bought was incorrect as per the reviews and they were fake reviews. And in those cases, actions should be first delegated to the platforms, online platforms, and in case nothing comes out of it, then the government should directly take action against those vendors, because any vendor who is selling to anybody in India has to have a GST number. And so it is not that it is an international thing and we cannot control the suppliers. The government is in full control because the GST numbers are there, and if the product in any way is coming from outside the country, then there is a trader with a valid GST number. So their names and numbers are all available in record. So the actions can be taken against them by the government. But as we said, that it is a step-by-step process. Initially, we have to go and tell people, make them aware today that their reviews cannot be deleted, should not be deleted, and fake reviews, they should have a power to write a review that they have bought a product and the product is not up to the expectation, and that review is available there. On the other hand, manufacturers or suppliers like us would also be replying to their reviews. If somebody is writing a review just to take revenge from a supplier or under any other circumstance, I would be able to write under that no, my product was right, it was supplied as per the specification, either the expectations were too high of this person or he had read incorrectly. So we should be able to answer for it.
Right, and I think the most important aspect here is there should be clarity for the consumer, who is the end user, to distinguish between what is a paid review, what is a fake review, and perhaps these guidelines will help the consumer filter out. That perhaps is a significant step that we've been talking about. Time is running out. I'll just take one last question, very quick question, Ms. Girimaji, from you. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since it's a voluntary code right now, like the Advertising Council of India, I think the online platforms should come together and form some kind of a group or a committee, independent committee, which will review the work, which will, check whether the online platforms are following these guidelines and come up with some kind of a voluntary compliance. I think that would make a lot of difference. I think manufacturers or online platforms in this case and the vendors, they have a responsibility towards consumers, and it would really be good if on their own they come up with measures to ensure that there is complete compliance or strict compliance of the standards.
Okay,
That
so
will make a lot of difference, and it will also make consumers trust these. It will be a beginning so that consumers can also begin to trust these online reviews.
Certainly. Going forward, it's going to be very important. And let's see how effective it is. It's going to be effective starting the 25th of November. So what difference does it make in the review pattern system is something that we'll all have to wait and watch. For now, I'll have to stop at that. Thank you once again to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Perspective, sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. And viewers, thank you for your time as well. That's it from us on this edition of the program. I'll see you same time tomorrow. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sansad TV.